to explain to anybody who doesn't know, the Carte de Se is essentially your residency permit for France. And that's what, when you come to France with a long stay visa and you renew that visa, you're actually not renewing your visa, you're applying for Carte de Séjour. I think I'm correct on that, but you can correct me if not, Richard. So can you talk us through what happens once you get to France? You've got your long stay visa. What happens now? How do I go about that next step of applying for the Carte de Séjour?
Yeah. So if you move with us, we will have a full inclusive package to do all of the admin tasks over the next 12 months so that we bring you to the Carte de Séjour in the best possible conditions. And we only give you those money back or reapplication guarantees if you followed the procedures, either done themselves or followed the procedures that we recommend, which are going to be registering for a tax code, doing a tax return, doing getting a driving license exchange if applicable, just doing everything possible to have French documents when you come to renew that Carte de Séjour. Entering the French medical system is also a big one. Fabien mentioned earlier about timeframes, but also what you've got to consider is that sometimes the prefectures, so these are the regional offices where you'll have your appointment, which the three pillars are similar to the first part of the application. But here, this is a French national working and enjoying his French area and potentially being disturbed by an awful lot of second homeowners, British people or expats that haven't followed the rules for a long while before Brexit and, have caught themselves up without tax codes and loads of things. And a lot of it is innocent, by the way. Just people thought that their taxe foncière or taxe d'habitation was their tax because they didn't work. For those that remote work as well, it's very key to say that remote work is totally allowed. There are some grey areas. So if you're working and you're your own director, or you're the director of your business and you are the business, then there's legitimacy of where you actually reside permanently. So there's rules, there's lots of stuff around that. And if you are considering remote working, please reach out to me because I've become quite an expert on those areas because more and more of my clients remote work, but also I have companies in several different countries, so I have to employ and know those rules. So I've paid loads of money for that kind of advice, and I can now share it with you guys. But in context, the application for the Carte de Séjour is the key one to prepare to its best, because if it's not successful, all that happens is you either get an extension until you can provide the documents, and that's usually where I'm saying the French are very understanding in a way. So you'll get an extension until you can correct your file. And where Fabien has also mentioned, they kind of make their own rules up. Well, this is kind of true. I think I joke about it. What are you going to do if they say no and you don't agree with them? Well, if you use our services, we'll be on the phone on the day, and in certain circumstances, you can ask somebody that speaks French to accompany you, although that's not always accepted. But they might just say, well, actually, we want you to have a social security number. And you say, well, I don't need one. I've got private medical coverage. And in theory, you're right. But if they say, no, we want you to have that, you can't really argue it.
If I can jump in on this one, because actually this is something not everybody...
Happens quite often at the moment.
Yeah, it's a mandatory... it's not optional. You need to be part of the French Social Security. People are asking, can I be covered? It's not a can. It's actually a need. You need to be part of the French Social Security. Once you've been in France for more than 6 months, you're supposed to be part or have started the process of application.
So before they were pretty laxist with it, now they're not. There's other things, they're looking out for second homeowners. You've got to understand that your Carte de Séjour, that process, my parents moved to France 39 years or 40 years ago. That was already in place before the kind of Schengen zone was put in place, etc. So it's a very old process. It's nothing to be that worried about. But what they're looking for here is French documents, proof of you being in France. So this is where I think Amanda asked earlier. We lived in France 12 years ago. We love France. This is when that might help. Letters from your mayor, proof that you are in France permanently. So for what we propose in our packages, which to answer many questions, how much does it cost per person? it's not really so much we make a bespoke tailor-made package, but this would include all of the visas, the carte de séjour, including getting into the French healthcare. I would say would be roughly around 5,000 euros per person, including taxes, etc. But that's spread over a 12-month period. We have payment plans, all the lovely things like money back and guarantees. But to answer the question about the carte de séjour, it will vary this from region to region quite dramatically. You might also not get your appointment straight away. So you might be overstaying on your visa before you set your appointment. Don't worry. They will issue you a document which actually does technically allow you to leave the Schengen zone, although we don't really recommend it. But technically speaking, they might actually just give you an extension because, you're in an area where there's an awful lot of expats. So if you're in Dordogne Shire or Brittany Shire, then there's lots of people renewing their visas to carte de séjours. You might have a delay, which means that you're going to be waiting. So nothing to worry about. But it does mean that you've got to make sure that you've got those documents in order. And if you have sold your property to move to France and now you've cashed low and you haven't got any income, that's when you could be denied. So those that have come along with and spent, majority of their savings on their house and now have got a business and were badly advised to create a structure in France, and Fabien and I can talk to you all about that, having French businesses and multiple ones, each of us, employing people in France is extremely expensive. And so when you're a director of the business, you can't afford to pay yourself much money very often. So if you are a gîte business and your business plan doesn't actually allow you to earn minimum wage, your change of status, which would have been required because you've first come as a visitor, you've then proposed to change your status. Because you spent your money on your house, you've no longer got the savings required, and therefore you're going to have to prove to them that you're going to make minimum wage. That might be difficult. And you might have also bought a business in France and then realized that actually hitting minimum wage for you as a director is super hard. But on top of that, super expensive. It means that you're going to be paying about 2.5 times your net salary to pay yourself that figure because you're considered a director of a company. So your social charges and payment to the French state is higher than an employee. So these are the only cases, I think, where you've got to be particularly attentive when you apply in the first place. So reaching out to us way before you leave, talking through your business plans. Both Fabien and I think are extremely well versed in the world of business in France as well, because Fabien's very modest, but outside of this, he's helped an awful lot of businesses set up in France, etc. And I've learned the hard way and done it myself. But I think we've got 8 different businesses registered in France. But my point being is that it might also be worth talking with us, because we might be able to say to you, well, actually, you were planning for this visa application, but based on your overall idea or your situation or your remote working, and you might be quitting your job and then you're going to do a gîte, we might come up with a solution which is more tailored to your needs, which enables you to actually be successful on the carte de séjour.
And actually, Richard has been quite modest as well when you mentioned the investor visa in France. I mean, if you want that kind of visa, apart from Richard, I don't think there is any single advisor out there that can do it. And same with other things. If you're American and want to drive, basically with an American license because you're a second home owner, we do have solutions that I think as well are exclusive to France. So we do have unique solutions that we've created over the years that I think the competition is lacking way behind. And it's not to be bragging, it's really because I think we're the only ones that tried to understand the system in depth, whereas most of the time people are just selling a service.